Hello and welcome to this month's review of The Humble Choice. As usual, there's 12 games to choose from, as well as a Humble original. This month may originally appear disappointing to many, but is there more hidden behind the surface? Let's take a look. This month's Humble original is Grotto, a game that is, well, it's hard to explain. You play as a world saviour, answering the inhabitants' questions by mapping star constellations. First off, let's deal with the positives. This game has a beautiful, if slightly haunting, sung soundtrack. The cel-shaded graphics also work really well. It's a 3D world with 2D characters that always face towards you. This overall design is reminiscent of classic 3D shooters. From here, the game gets a lot more abstract. Citizens of the world will want answers to their questions. Then you map stars together by looking up at the stars. It seems the different constellations denote alternative answers, but it's hard to recreate a constellation successfully, so my answers just came by randomly linking the stars. It's an original idea, and that's what you want from a Humble original. It's definitely not a bad game. A solid entry into the original lineup, but it's not for me. As standard with many Paradox titles, Age of Wonders Planetfall is a turn-based grand strategy game. It's what you'd expect from this genre, constructing buildings, assigning research, choosing policies, etc. What stood out for me was the combat. It's very reminiscent of the XCOM series of games, and I enjoyed the battles in this. On a grid-based environment, troops can be moved, asked to attack, or enter other abilities such as Overwatch. I managed to shoot down the alien bug-like creatures with this type of combat. Tutorials worked well, with a futuristic AI guiding me towards what I need to do, placing blue gems on the menus that I needed to click on. I enjoyed the sci-fi environment more than the typical historical ones I've been used to in turn-based strategy games. There's different landscapes, and the tropical alien fauna work well with the futuristic style. The campaign has been quite good for me so far, if a little basic. Rescue the survivors and see what happens from there. If you don't like turn-based strategy, I don't think this game will change your thoughts on the genre, but for those who already enjoy these types of games, it's definitely worth a pickup. Void Bastards is a roguelike set in space with an incredible comic book aesthetic. Dropped into space, it's up to you to traverse the galaxy to find a line printer and ID card. If you're familiar with the game Faster Than Light, then the map design will be very recognisable. My first couple of runs didn't go too well. I bumped into far too many enemies and ran out of ammo. On my second run, I felt more confident with what I was doing. However, there is still much more for me to learn. Basically, there's different ship components scattered across the ships, which must be found by accessing maps and avoiding enemies. You'll definitely want to avoid these enemies. They patrol corridors whilst muttering some classic English gangster slang. These are some people you don't want to bump in a hallway alone. Upon reset, a new character, each with their own flaws and strengths, will restart the mission to find the printer and ID. Tools and weapons carry over to the new character, so death isn't a complete reset. I've said before that roguelikes don't usually appeal to me, but this game does so much right. From the dialogue, level design and graphics, I just want to play a lot more. Up next is Railway Empire, and I'm sure it will come to no surprise that this is a railway management game. I've seen quite a few people ignore this game from the bundle just because of its genre. As always, I tried to give each game a chance, and I originally enjoyed my time. It's after I completed the first parts of the tutorial that I realised this one isn't for me. The main idea of the game is to construct a world-class railway system by constructing tracks, linking towns, building locomotives, amongst other goals. Before I played, I thought this was hyper-realistic, with a focus on simulation, but instead it feels more arcadey, which I enjoyed. I found the beginning of my experience fun, bridging connections to nearby towns and dispatching the trains. In terms of music, it's got a nice Old West style. When looking for a train track manager, graphics aren't the most important aspect, but they aren't terrible and definitely not an eyesore. Different menus can be used to build tracks or stations, and the building of the track network can be highly customised. Unfortunately, this just isn't a game for me. I just can't see myself returning for hours and hours with this one. Still, the positive reviews on Steam show that for its target audience, this is a game worth a shot. Battlestar Galactica Deadlock is a turn-based space combat game set in the Battlestar Galactica universe. First off, I've never seen or read anything about Battlestar Galactica's lore, so all the story and ship names are all new to me. I was not looking forward to reviewing this, but the game surprised me. Movement and general interaction is very intuitive, making it easy to change a ship's location. The game works in two parts, moving the ship and then assigning combat commands. Usually the tutorials for these types of games can feel very overwhelming for me, but I felt that I was taught the basics in a very approachable manner. I didn't pay attention to the story, but after speaking to a Battlestar Galactica fan about the plot, they didn't find the story particularly noteworthy. He did however say that the ship names and the actual lore of the game was accurate to the universe. It has quite a grand soundtrack, which works really well, and increases the fanfare of the battlefield. The version included in the bundle includes the Chapter 1 content, so there's a ton of DLC included, which may be of interest. As someone who is not a fan of the overall battleship lore or genre, I won't be returning, but if some turn-based ship combat looks appealing, this is a great choice. Yuppie Pyscho is a 2D pixel art horror title. I was debating whether or not I should mention the genre of this game, but with the choice format, I feel like it's worth knowing whether or not you'd actually enjoy the game that you choose. The horrorness of it is discovered about 10 minutes through the game, so even though it's not explicitly advertised on the Steam page, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler. You play as a character who is starting a new job, and things definitely take a dark turn. Horror isn't the genre for me, so I didn't enjoy it. For a horror game though, it has a lot of humour, but the dark themes are very much prominent. The pixel art for both the cutscenes and the game itself look very good, and I enjoy the design of this. The game features a save only when you have enough material system, and while I can see why it has a system like this to help provide more tension, this is an aspect that I hate. I like to be able to quit my games when I need to, not feel forced to keep playing. Sound design is good, with silent sections being interrupted by single piano keys, and a very well done musical ambience in the other sections. I've tried being fairly vague about the plot, as if a pixel art dark game sounds appealing to you, it's definitely worth the experience. It's not a bad game, but it's not for me. The next game, Beat Hazard 2, features flashing lights which may cause problems to those with photosensitive epilepsy. If you prefer to avoid seeing these lights, then please use the timestamps in the description to navigate to the next game. I really enjoyed this one. It's a bullet hell shooter which uses music to provide the spawn rate of ships and weapons. In time to the music, different enemies will appear. I started with downloading some copyright-free tracks to play, and I think the best way to show you this game is for me to sit back for a moment and let you watch/listen to the game. As you can see, there's a lot going on, and it can be a bit overwhelming at first, but there's different customization options, which allow you to decrease the graphics intensity, which may be of use. After each track, there's different perks and upgrades that could be unlocked. Money can also be collected, which could be spent on these aforementioned upgrades and new ships. After I finished the levels featuring the copyright-free music, I played some of the soundtrack from Hamilton, and the game picked up the music straight away. I started the new level, and it asked me to mute the music, and then, after a countdown, I pressed play and the game began. This was a very inventive feature, which worked well. Aside from the music feature, it's a standard bullet hell. Shoot ships, which appear in waves upon waves. Find an album you like, get into the tempo, and cause some destruction. An easy recommendation. Sigma Theory is a turn-based spy strategy. By dispatching spies on missions, intel must be collected on scientists from across the world. I began by choosing 4 spies, each with different skills and flaws. Some were strong but lacked intellect, others had the art of seduction but were weak-willed. Then it's on to the world map, where spies can be sent to different countries. The main goal is to steal 15 scientists from their countries to utilise a new piece of technology, Sigma. It's turn-based, so countries are also competing to use this technology. I'm unsure how fast the rounds last, but in the story mode, 20 minutes in, a few countries had already gathered 3 out of the 15 intel. The spies have the option to gather intel about scientists or take down enemies. On top of that, diplomacy plays a key role, keeping relationships with countries balanced and stable by sharing intel or money to each other. The interface and audio is what you'd expect from a spy game, sleek and modern. With the apparent short round times, I'll definitely try another go. Up next is Metal Unit, a 2D pixel art side-scroller. To be quite honest, I originally approached this game with some reservations. I'm not a fan of suggestive anime content, but aside from some suggestive content in the menus and cutscenes, this game's pixel art is clean. So to speak, the pixel art design is very good and well detailed, and it's easy to recognise enemies from this environment. Speaking of enemies, these are also very detailed and diverse, with unique designs. I found the controls responsive, which made mech-based combat fast-paced and satisfying, leading to some cool dash combos. The story here also has quite a lot of depth, which has its pros and cons. Because of its advanced story, there's a lot of reading. There's no voiceover, however this may be planned in the future. The game only released in February and is still in early access, so there's a lot that could be added. Whilst not a full roguelike, it does have a few elements. Upon death and exiting the game, weapons are converted into research points, which are used to unlock new abilities and items. Upon death, I think you're reset back into the last chapter, so not all progress is lost. Don't avoid this game just because it's anime. The suggestive content isn't anywhere near as much as I expected, and the overall combat is great. I think this game may be overlooked by many, but take a double look. There's a demo you can try before you buy. It may surprise you as much as it did for me. Don't Escape 4 Days to Survive is the fourth instalment in the survival point-and-click Don't Escape series. As a point-and-click game, this does a lot well. It's possible to increase the movement speed, and items can be learnt about just by right-clicking on them, instead of walking all the way over to interact. The pixel art itself is both a blessing and a curse. It looks good, but collectible objects can blend in with the environment, so they're not easily recognisable. Even when reading the title, I didn't realise this was a survival game. It does the survival aspects quite well. There's limited time allowed to perform tasks each day, and there's a weight limit that can be carried. I haven't played the original story, but everything plot-wise makes sense here. It's purposely vague first, but snippets of previous events can be discovered. Sometimes point-and-click games can suffer from having solutions to problems that just don't make sense. Fortunately, Don't Escape 4 doesn't have this issue. I needed a hammer, so I combined a hammer head and a small wooden pole. Then I could use this hammer to break the greenhouse to gain more material. It just makes sense. I'm not wanting to start a new survival game, but if a point-and-click survival game sounds appealing, Don't Escape 4 will definitely give a high level of enjoyment. Next up is Verlet Swing, a grappling hook 3D game with a vaporwave aesthetic. This is so good. The goal is simple: reach the glowing blue orb by swinging from various platforms, floating throughout the levels. Environments are what you'd expect from a vaporwave style game, with vivid colours and abstract objects. I originally started by playing with keyboard and mouse, and struggled a lot. However, when I switched over to controller, I found the experience much more enjoyable. Although there's no controller bindings mentioned in the game, it's fairly simple. The triggers are used to grab, and the joystick acts as the WASD keys to move. Of course, with a vaporwave game, you'd expect a stellar soundtrack, and this game definitely lives up to those expectations. It's very chill, just swinging in the environments, taking in the sights and sounds. The overall difficulty is balanced. It took me a while to get into the rhythm of some levels, but never felt impossible. There are 100 levels, as well as community created content, and I definitely want to see how much of the campaign I can get finished. Basingstoke is a 3D roguelike zombie game set in the streets of England. The overall style of this game can probably be recognised if you've seen films such as Shaun of the Dead. Classic British road signs and features are unapologetically prevalent throughout the game. The game is a roguelike, but from what I played, quite a lot more progress such as items remain than typical games from the genre. To begin with a lack of weapons, I had to outrun the robotic zombies. Whilst running, I discovered more money which can be spent on upgrades. There are also some inventive items which can be used to lure the zombies off track. There are also some elements of stealth, as some enemies are so powerful that you must sneak past them. Overall though, general gameplay is constantly moving and fast paced. This is important as it's a one-hit kill system, so restarting doesn't hurt too much when you're straight into the action. I want to play this game a bit more, as I think there's more characters, customisations and gameplay to be discovered. Earthlock is a turn-based JRPG. Like roguelikes, I'm not usually a fan of these style of games, but I did enjoy what I played. As you'd expect, combat is turn-based. Different stances can be chosen, which change the combat options available. There's ranged and melee attacks, which can be used by the members in your party. Combat felt approachable to a newcomer to the genre like me, and no lengthy tutorials were needed to explain. I did find that using a controller provided a far better experience, as the standard key bindings didn't seem too intuitive. The setting combines elements of fantasy and steampunk to provide an overall nice environment. There are the typical magic ruins, quaint shops, whilst also featuring the occasional steampunk ships. Characters also seem to be quite diverse, with different humans and even animals to choose from. I enjoyed my time, but according to How Long to Beat, this game takes over 20 hours to finish, so I won't be investing any other time into this game. Still, Earthlock does a lot right, and should definitely appeal to those who enjoy this genre and want a new big game to start playing. So, what did I drop? I didn't own any games from this month, so for the purpose of the review, I actually bought Verlet Swing, as it was less than £4 in the Steam summer sale. Space Tacos, a Discord friend, generously gifted me Earthlock, so I didn't need to use a choice on that one. If you can only choose 10 or 9 games, then I'd recommend dropping Battlestar Galactica Deadlock, as it's fairly niche. I'd also say drop Railway Empire or Yuppie Pyscho. If, unlike me, you're a fan of these genres, then change your choices, but these are what I would personally drop. Now on to my final thoughts. If you're not a fan of roguelikes or strategy games, then this bundle might be worth a pass. For me, the best games from this bundle are from these genres. They're good quality games, but I don't think they'll change your feelings on the genre if you weren't a fan before. Metal Unit was a very pleasant surprise, as was Beat Hazard 2. The problem with this bundle is, when I think back, there's not too many games I'm eager to return to. Void Bastards and Verlet Swing are the only games that I'm really yearning to get back to. Sure, I might play some of the others when I finish the other two, but I'm not in a big rush. Still, is this month worth the $12 for classic subs? Like last month, I'd say if you like the games from the genre, there's some fun to be had here, and it's definitely worth your cash. 10 of these games for £9 still holds up as a great deal, even with the Steam summer sale on. Thank you to Double Chris for their support on Patreon. If you'd like to help out the channel, you'll find a link in the video's description.